All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Mahoney. I'm with the Greater Hartford chapter of SCORE. I'm delighted to be joined today by Robin Clapp, who is from Web Design by Robin. And she is going to be talking about 7 key elements for a business website today, a topic that I think is very important for all business owners. Before we jump in, I wanted to say a few things about SCORE to let you know more about what we do. SCORE is a nationwide organization made up of about 10,000 volunteers. And our mission every day is to help small business owners. The primary service we provide is one-on-one mentoring. We also run workshops and webinars like this one. We also have a host of resources on our website. If you're interested in learning more about SCORE, you can go to score.org. Virtually all of the services we provide are free, especially the mentoring services. We've got mentors from all walks of life, whether it's in the area of legal, finance, marketing, whatever help you need in kind of whatever industry, more or less, chances are good we can find someone to help you out. So if you're interested in learning more about SCORE, you can go to score.org and sign up for mentoring services. A few logistic items before we jump in. We've muted everybody's lines just to prevent any background noise. The session is being recorded. We will send a link to the recording out afterwards. But we do want to hear from you, even though your lines are muted. So if you have questions throughout the session, feel free to put the question in the Q&A box, and we will keep an eye on that. And we will also have time for questions at the end of this. So we've got plenty of time for that. So I'd love to hear from you as we go throughout this. So with that, Robin, I will turn it over to you.
Sure. All right. I'm going to share my screen. This is my presentation. Can everyone see it?
Looks good.
That looks good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Clapp. Today's presentation will cover a few key elements every business website should have. Oops, starting off on the wrong slide. There we go. Reset. Good morning. A few key elements every small business website should have. And I'm your presenter, Robin Clapp. Here's my contact information. I am a small business owner of Web Design by Robin, and I will share my contact information at the end during the Q&A. A little bit about myself. I've been working with my business as an entrepreneur for 17 years, and I've been doing this from home. Before, working from home was really cool, right? Now it's really cool to work from home. Before this, I graduated with a computer engineering degree and worked for General Dynamics. I was a hardware firmware engineer straight out of college. I co-oped there first, and I did that for 13 years. So why did I leave General Dynamics to start my own business to work from home? And my why is explained in my next slide. These two guys, these are my twin boys. They're Danny and Trevor. And when they started kindergarten, it was half day, and I really needed a flexible schedule, and I needed to be able to put them on the bus and take them off the bus. So I started my business, Web Design by Robin. This is their high school graduation, but now they're juniors in college, and they're 21 years older, and 17 years later, I'm still the owner of Web Design by Robin and a huge advocate of entrepreneurial endeavors and businesses. And this is why I love what I do. Today, we're going to cover 7 key elements to look for in a business website. These are absolute must-have elements for all business websites as a minimum. And if you do these things, it will make your website user-friendly, easy to understand, functional, safe, versatile, and current. Even if a website is missing just one of these elements, it drastically decreases the likelihood that a potential customer or client will stay on your website rather than move on to another one. So let's get started. And the first element is clean design. This is a before and after screenshot of the Fisk Public Library in Rentham, Massachusetts. I use this as an example to demonstrate the power of clean design, because this website has a lot going on, as most library websites do. And clean design can focus your eye in one direction or another. It can break up information into logical pieces, making that information easy to find. You can use words, icons, colors, images to create areas of interest. And one of the most important elements of design, in my opinion, is the use of white space. White space is about having space to provide for proper separation. The before picture on the left-hand side has essentially all the same information as the redesign on the right. But as you can see, the original design breaks down in several areas. It lacks that separation, what we call white space, between the elements in the columns and between the columns themselves. In addition, the use of colorful text draws attention to your eye, but not to something worth drawing attention to. It creates a distraction rather than that calm feeling. It looks disorganized rather than clean. So with some minor changes to this front page layout using clean design, the Fisk Public Library of Wrentham, Mass. has been transformed into an easy to use, easy to navigate resource for the community. And this is a really good example of the power of clean design. Our second element is clear message. A website with a clear message tells you exactly what they do through the use of words and images. Can they solve my problem? That is the question we are trying to answer when someone visits that homepage of a website. This is an example of a marine construction company. The opening message is Vlaco Marine offers a variety of marine services from marine construction to yacht management. That's very straightforward, right? You can see that we've broken down the services into categories that combine words with images to further demonstrate what they do. We do dock construction, we have a truckable barge, we do land and sea pile driving, we do yacht management. You get the point, right? Very easy to understand. The phone number is easy to find, their address, their email. And since many businesses have a limited geographic area that they can service, it is really good practice to be upfront about your service area. So that's right there in the footer. We serve these communities. When you come to this website, you can figure out fairly quickly exactly what they do, and more importantly, whether or not they can solve your problem. So this is a really great example of a website with a clear message. On to number 3, calls to action. Calls to action clearly define what a website visitor should do next. When I work with a client, I ask them, how do you run your business? Because every business is different and they have their own process that they follow. It works best for them. So I need to find out what that process is so I can define these actions based on it. In this example, Provost Home Design is trying to appeal to homeowners and contractors who need home plans drawn up, right? So their number one call to action is they want to schedule a free design consultation. If they can get someone to sign up on their calendar for that free design consultation, that's their best way to gain that client. But there are several other actions. Okay, this is what we really want them to do, but the secondary actions are there to build trust. If a site visitor wants to learn more about scheduling that free consultation, they will probably stay on the website a bit longer and try to learn more about them. You want to make that as easy as possible. So like the rotating banner shows custom designs that could grab your interest. And maybe you want to browse through the full collection. So you go and see more custom home designs. A site visitor is probably interested in the process, like how much is this going to cost and what's involved? So we added a call to action, learn more about our process and pricing. The get started action indicates that there is a definite first step and that they are willing to guide you through it. And this is a comfort for some people. Maybe they just like to start at the beginning, so they'll click on the get started. These calls to action are specific to Provost Home Design and the way that they do business, and yours may be different. All right, here is an example I took from my website, American Drum Company. And I want you to look for the calls to actions. What would a site visitor do next? Maybe they're there to find a class, visit the museum, or browse our events. So you get the idea. Calls to action are action words. They're actions that your site visitor will take next, so that you're moving them into the website and eventually getting them to the call to action where they reach out to you and you have a warm lead. Okay, the first three key elements focused on the design of the website: clean design, clear message, calls to action. This one is all about being responsible and taking the measures necessary to make your website safe for those who are visiting your website. Every time you enter a website and view a padlock next to the URL, it means that the website is secure. You may think this only applies to online shopping websites that collect your credit card for payment, but this is not true. It applies to all websites. It's about privacy. This may seem a little technical, but it's worth a lesson if it helps you protect yourself while you're online and those of your customers or clients. The S in HTTPS, that stands for secure. And when you visit a website that is just HTTP, the website you visit and all the data sent over the connect, it is not private. So when we add that SSL certificate and we install it on the website, it adds a layer of security that creates an encrypted connection. Any information shared between the website visitor and the website is now encrypted. All the traffic to the website is directed through the HTTP with the S on the end. And also, you can always click on that little padlock and you can learn about that SSL certificate. So that's one more way you can check that a website is secure before you visit it. Here's something interesting. In 2018, Google decided that protecting the privacy of those browsing the internet was important. In fact, it was so important that it was going to present a warning to anyone entering a non-secure website. Furthermore, if your business website is not secure, then your Google ranking will be negatively affected. Are you turning away customers? Let's face it, your customers are using Google to find you, whether you know it or not. Even if they've been to your website a dozen times, they go to Google and they type in the name of your business to get to that website URL. They don't remember the URL. And then your new customers are going to Google to find you, correct? If Google warns your customers to steer clear of your site, they're going to do it. So protect yourself, your customers, the integrity of your business by making your website secure. And if you take away only one thing today, this is what I want you to take away. Secure your website by installing that SSL certificate, so you will always have the HTTPS and that little padlock next to your URL. All right, on to number 5. This is a fun topic: responsive website design. How does your website look on a desktop, on a tablet, or mobile? And why is this important? 40% of your customers are visiting your website using their mobile devices. Let's face it. People are using voice detection to ask the phone question, Siri, find me a place to fill my propane tank. And maybe they'll go to Sherborne Fuel, right? And it's close by, they're a mile away, and they drive over there, they fill up their propane. Siri, homemade ice cream near me. That's a favorite during the summertime, right? They're on their mobile devices, they're looking at your website, they're clicking on the address, they're getting directions to get there. You want to make sure it's mobile friendly. Your customers are on the go, they want to find you on the fly. This means they're using their phones to visit business websites, so you want to make it really easy for them to do business with you. Number 6, keep your website content current. This is really interesting. So recently on my recently on my LinkedIn, I had put up a poll asking people what the number one reason that frustrates them when they visit websites. And having inaccurate information on the website was the #1 voted frustration. And there's really no reason for it. When I first started designing websites 17 years ago, I was building websites with HTML and CSS. That's what I was doing. I was coding them, but I have an engineering background and this was really easy for me. But then came along content management systems called CMS, and websites are built on top of these content management systems. The one that I use and have been using all these years is called Joomla. But it's super easy. The designers go in, they design the website, they give their customers a login so they can log in, right? So you've got a username, a password, you log into your website, you go find the page you want to make a change on, you make the change, you save it, you go back to the front end of your website on Chrome or Firefox, or you refresh it and there's the change, right? You no longer have to know how to code a website in order to make those content changes. And you no longer have to go back to your web designer and wait for them to fit it in their schedule and have to pay them to make those changes. If your website is designed on a content management system, you should be making the changes to your website so that it's always current and you're not frustrating your customers and clients looking for you and looking to see what you're offering, what your prices are, what your address is, what your phone number is. It's the #1, as far as the poll I put on LinkedIn, the #1 frustration for people who visit websites. All right. So if you have a business website that is built on top of a CMS, I highly recommend you do the following. Remove content that is no longer correct. Old prices, wrong business hours, items on your menu that you no longer offer, because this just frustrates your site visitors, your customers, your clients, your potential clients. Make sure your copyright date is listed as the current year. When I go to a website and it says copyright 2012, I'm wondering, are they even still in business? And with COVID and so many businesses closing, you really want to check before you make the effort to go somewhere or to reach out to someone to see if they're in business. And a copyright date that old makes you wonder. So make sure it says 2023 or else people are confused. Again, you don't want to give anyone a reason not to do business with you. All right, almost done. One more topic. We're going to open it up for questions and answers. And at the very end, I just want to remind you that we're going to do a fun little exercise. So stay tuned even after the question and answers. Number 7. This is the most overlooked part of website design. It's called website maintenance. Sometimes overlooked, but I think of it as the best way to protect your investment. The best way to keep your website healthy over time is to have your website designer maintain your website. And as an example, this is what I offer in my maintenance plan. And you can reach out to your web designer and ask them if they're doing the same. 24/7 monitoring. I know if a website goes down before my clients do. Website backups. I do regular backups so that if anything ever happens, I can get a website backup within 10 minutes. Software updates. This is the most important one. Every time there is a software update, 9 out of 10 times, it's because of a security breach. Someone's learned a new way to hack in. You want to do your software update to correct that exposure so that your website does not get hacked. And the last thing is I guarantee my work. So if something works today and 2 years from now, it doesn't work, I guarantee my work. I'll get in there and I'll fix it. So a healthy relationship with your web designer is really important. You want to continue that relationship so that your website investment, the money you paid for your website, it serves you for years to come. There is nothing worse than investing the time and the money to design a website with your web designer, paying the website designer, and then that's the last time you see them. Yes, the website might be beautiful and functional and works flawlessly the day it's launched, but wait a year and it will be hacked because it never got the ongoing security patches and the updates were needed, but they were never done. your website went down and you don't have the backups. So what are you going to do? Start all over again? It's a large investment, and it's a lot of money and of time. And you want to make sure that you have that ongoing relationship with your web designer so that they're always with you, to grow with your business as well, to change with your business, to keep that website relevant, to keep it fresh, to keep it healthy, to keep it secure. So don't overlook website maintenance. Right. That's my dog Sky. Say hello. Again, my name is Robin Clapp. I'm here to start a discussion. If you have any questions at this time, that'd be a great time to ask. I know Stephen is monitoring question and answers. That's my contact information. If at any time afterwards you think of a question after the webinar, reach out to me or reach out to Steve, and he'll get in touch with me. And again, I do have a small little exercise we're going to do after the question and answers, so stay tuned.
All right, that's great, Robin. It's we do have a few questions that have come in, which I'll go through and definitely keep them coming because we've got time. It's interesting, as you were going through all of your tips, it hit me that, all the things you talked about clean design and security and everything are the obvious things when you've got a physical location, right? Everyone's always like, I want my store to look good. I want it to be secure. And sometimes people don't necessarily think about it with their website, but that is the first place that people find your business, right?
True.
That's where they're going to find you before they're going to go to your physical location if you have one. So it's interesting when I thought about it that way, how some of these things are so obvious with a physical location, but you might not think about what a website, but they're just as important, if not more so.
Your online location should
Right,
just
exactly.
right should be just as.
All right, so I'll go through some of these questions here. And so the first one is, we've got this first one and a follow-up. To what extent does an organization validation through the SSL increase SEO or provide other benefit? And does it make sense to pay for a more expensive SSL?
So for me, my clients, I make technology recommendations, and I'll recommend a hosting company that comes with a free SSL. And that's really important because if you're doing a shared hosting company, which is usually more than enough for just your standard website, you want it to be sitting next to websites that are also secure. And that's a big deal. If you're on a shared hosting that's a little less expensive and they have to pay extra for their SSL certificate and companies don't know it, and then they don't buy it, and like you'll buy it, but then the person, the 10 people next to you are not secure. If their websites get hacked in, that hacking could potentially work its way over to you because it's on the same server. So getting the SSL certificate that comes with your hosting account means everyone's going to get that SSL certificate, and you're much better off than if you try to go somewhere else where you have to pay for your SSL. I do recommend SiteGround. I have articles on my website with technology recommendations, but that's not the only way to go. Would you pay for a more extensive SSL certificate? Maybe if you had like a shopping cart website and you were taking credit card information, you'd want to do something more extensive. But if you're like a informational only website where you're trying to promote your business, you want people to reach out to you using those calls to action, there's really no data collection that's super, super sensitive. But you have to have that SSL certificate or you're not even going to show up on Google. So that's like a first step. You have to have it. You might as well go through a company that provides it for free, get it installed as soon as you go live with your website, and then you're good to go. So it's really a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how many websites out there are not secure just because they never got it secure. Their designer didn't do it. They didn't know it was a thing, and they don't realize it.
And that's something they can just work with their web designer on, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's more of a technology thing. Whoever sets up your hosting account, whoever installs your website, design files, and gets it all set up would be the same person who would install your SSL certificate.
All right, great. So Dawn had a question about, you mentioned about a website built on CMS. She asked, how do you know if your website is built on a CMS? She used a GoDaddy template and she does not seem happy with it.
Yeah, no. GoDaddy templates kind of fall in the range of plug and plays, like your Wix and your Weebly's. not very useful, hard to understand. They don't optimize well for SEO, but they're for someone who's trying to do it themselves. What I recommend is you go with one of the professional CMSs. There's 3 of them that are the top 3. I always work in Joomla. I absolutely love Joomla. There's WordPress and there's Drupal. And your web designer is really the one who should be designing in that CMS. And then what I do is a custom backend experience. I talk to my clients. I want to know what they plan on doing. Are they going to be adding testimonials all the time? Are they going to be adding photos to their portfolio? Are they going to be adding new employees in there? New case studies? What are they going to be wanting to change on a regular basis? And I create an environment that's super easy for them to do it in. I create the instructions, I hand it off to the client, and then they have that login and they can go in and do it when they want to. But you're better off working with a web designer that's building on top of a CMS, so that you kind of have that experience already built in, and they give you the instructions and it makes it easy for you to do it. You can't break anything, and that's really what's most important.
Hey, Robin, you mentioned WordPress. We did have a question from Paul who asked how Joomla compares with WordPress. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, for me, there's a lot of advantages to using Joomla. It is the most accessible website platform, which I will touch on the topic of accessibility at the end with a fun little exercise. It's been around the same amount of time. It's just as mature. They all came out within a year of each other, Drupal, WordPress, and Joomla. I've been designing in Joomla from the very beginning. I would say that if you were someone who was trying to build a website yourself and you don't have a background in website design, that WordPress is probably the easiest one to do. But the problem is when someone goes and tries to do a website, they're not necessarily maintaining it correctly, and they're kind of fumbling with it, and they may have a hard time. Joomla is a little bit more advanced, but since I'm a web designer, I know what I'm doing inside of Joomla, and it's open source. I can do whatever I want. So I do custom designs. I don't purchase templates. I will create a very custom looking website, and it's really fast because it's not making decisions based on that template that can be 250 different variations. Pick a color, pick a size, pick a location. You get rid of all of those decisions, and I build just what the client wants. So Joomla is not a platform that you would necessarily go into if you're a business owner and say you're in the business of being a gas station convenience store owner, like I showed Sherborne Fuel. He doesn't want to build that website, but he hires me to build it, and I build it in a really good platform, and then I give access to him to make those changes. So it's not something where I would say that business owner should go and install Joomla and build a website. WordPress tends to be the easiest one, so it's more popular, but it's also the most hacked because business owners don't necessarily know how to secure and maintain their websites. And Drupal by far is the hardest one to use, and you'll find Drupal for universities and hospitals and larger organizations. So they're all good for what they're good for, but I prefer Joomla.
All right, that's helpful. We had a couple questions here about Shopify. Do you have an opinion on Shopify?
Yes, I do not create websites for e-commerce, but I've heard that's the #1 for e-commerce websites. It is separate from the CMS. So sometimes shop owners will create a storefront that tells them, they have about page and maybe a contact page, and maybe they have some services. And then if they sell things, they will leave that website and go to the Shopify. I personally haven't worked in it, but it's the #1 e-commerce solution from what I've heard.
Okay. We did get a question about if you had an opinion on whether or not the 7 tips you had today would be different between an e-commerce site versus one that is more just informational. Do you have an opinion on that? Or I know you don't have much experience.
Oh, these are standard like elements that every website should have. And so they're more principles than they are based on any one type of website. They really apply to all websites. And you want to make sure that your e-commerce is easy to navigate. There's a clean message. It's, that it has all the same principles so that the user experience is the same. And like I said, the SSL certificate, you may want to get a more expensive one, more robust one, because you're collecting credit cards for payment or what have you, but all websites need to be secure, and all websites should really be well organized, thought out, designed with a clear message in mind, that the calls to actions are easy to find. All of those same things apply to all websites.
That's a great point. You got kind of the foundational things that every business website should have at a minimum. That's a really good point. We got a couple questions here about finding a website designer. One would be, how do you know that they're knowledgeable in their field? Are there a few key things that you would look for if someone were to be looking for a website designer? And then also we had a question around cost, and I'm not asking you to give kind of a distinct quote here, but can you give a range of kind of what people should be expecting to pay for to hire a web designer to help them out?
Okay. Yeah. So anytime you hire someone, you want to see examples of their work. And the best thing about website design is you can go into their portfolio, you can go check out their websites, you can call that business owner and ask for a reference. Why wouldn't you, right? If you're going to be investing the money, and websites can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $12,000, just depending on the size of the website, depending on the functionality. So you want to make sure, if you're going to be spending that kind of money, that you've done your due diligence, right? And the best way to do it is to visit the portfolio and see examples of their work. Read those testimonials. Maybe, every website you go to usually has an email. You can email them. You can ask the website designer for references, and you can check those references. But look and see if you like those designs. Do those designs really appeal to you? Does that, their style of website, is that really what you're looking for? Ask them if they have examples. Like if I'm going to be interviewed by a lawyer to do their website, they may say, can I see some examples of other websites you've done for law firms or professional services? And so just like you would interview a person who's coming in to pave your driveway, you would do the same kind of thing for your website designer. Go out there and talk to other people that they've done work for, maybe go and see the examples of that work. But it's really easy to do with website designers because it's all online. I love it that my portfolio is live anytime anyone wants to see it.
No, that is great. And then any sense of kind of what people should expect to pay for a website designer?
Yeah. So like a starting price is usually mine is around $3,000, but it can go anywhere depending on the size of your business. Some websites I've done up to $12,000. I mean, this is, and these aren't e-commerce, obviously. These are more informational websites, businesses, mid-size. Some of them are news sites. Sometimes you have libraries, sometimes you have law firms, and it all depends. So what I always do is that free consultation, find out what they're trying to accomplish, determine what that sitemap is going to be, determine what the functionality is that they need. And then I would go and give them a quote. And I always, quotes are final. If they go with me, that's what it's going to cost.
That's helpful. We got a couple questions here around SEO. Do you have any insights on, keywords, how to optimize, people's search results, and any insights you can provide on Google Analytics based on your experience?
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm an engineer. I love coding a website. And that's kind of my background. And SEO is all about the stuff that's hidden behind your website that talks to Google, and Google is just a machine. It's really interesting to me, but is definitely a whole nother discipline that you constantly have to keep up with what the latest tips and tricks are, but there are basic ones. I had 7 elements that every website should have, and there's probably a second presentation I could do on, SEO 7 tips and tricks. But a lot of it also works into my presentation. Google likes a website that says what it does, and they do what they say they do. And some of it's common sense. So you don't want to trick Google into getting people to your site just by stuffing keywords or all this extra content that's not relevant, just trying to play games. You don't want to do that. You want to be as straightforward as possible about what you do, and you'll get the right people to your website. Now, that's just starting with the design. You have a really clean design. One thing Google loves a secure website. Get that SSL certificate. Google loves a mobile website. That happened before the SSL, several years before that. If you didn't have a mobile ready website, then it was going to get poor ranking. Google loves an organized website. And what does that mean? Your H1, which is just code, your main topic is the first thing on your page. Then you have paragraphs, and then you have subtopics. Those subtopics, it's kind of like reading a book. It's like you go to a table of contents and it tells you this is the title of the book, and here are your subtopics. Now you're writing for your website and you're thinking, I'm just going to bold the text whenever it's a topic. But if a website designer is being, if they're paying attention to the SEO, then they're going to put those under the right heading code. The code is going to say these are headings. And that way Google is going into your web page and it's scanning what your page is all about. And it can find that your page is covering these topics without having to read every paragraph that is just bolded. It just knows from looking for the H1, for looking for the H2, for looking for the H3. Any of your images need to have alternative text. And that's a little exercise I'm doing in a little bit after the presentation. But Google loves a clean design. It loves a fast loading website. It loves a secure website. It loves a cleanly coded website, and it loves an accessible website. So if your web designer is practicing good coding, then your website will do better right off the bat. Now, you asked the question of keyword research. That is a whole nother discipline. And I partner with an SEO specialist on my projects when I have clients that are in very competitive markets, and they do a little bit of research up front, and they find out what terms people are searching for to find what you do. So sometimes we kind of get lost in the lingo of our business because we were trained and we went to college for it and we work in that field every day. But then there's everyone else who's searching for your services, and they're searching totally different. So you sometimes have to change the language on your website to match what people are searching for to get them to your website. So first you code it properly, and then you can do a little research and then use the terminology that makes the most sense for getting people who are searching for your services onto your website because you've done that research. And you've gone.
Is that what you mean? Is that what you mean by alternative text? You said that a little while ago. We got a question.
Alternative text is the text behind an image. So if an image is unable to be viewed, a screen reader can read that text and tell you what that image is if you are vision impaired or blind.
Okay.
But Google is blind also. Google is just a computer, so it reads what an image is. So that's a way of also getting those key terms. If you're using images to further your message about what your website is all about, which you should, because imagery is just as important as colors and scenes and layout. It's all visual and it's all helping to pass that message. You want Google to know what the image is all about.
Right. It's interesting you talked about the kind of fine line between making sure you've got the right kind of content on your website to show up in the search results, but you've got to be truthful to what your website is doing, right? You don't want to have this bait and switch where people go to your website and say, wait a minute, I searched for this, but this isn't even what you do.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to turn you off. You turn the consumer off even more. Robin, we got a few questions that are along the lines of, how do I know that I need a website designer? And there's a handful of in here that are like, I've tried this on my own, my website's not working, or what do I do in this instance? Do you have kind of a rule of the road? Because, a lot of these folks they're entrepreneurs. They may not have the money to invest. They're not sure if they can invest. Do you have kind of some advice on when people should know, yes, I'm out of my depth, or I need something more sophisticated? Any advice you can give them along those lines?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of people who are starting up a business, and you probably do too, as a SCORE advisor. And it's hard sometimes because they don't have the capital they need right away to get everything that they need. So I sometimes suggest, depending on the consumers that they're trying to reach, maybe you should do a social media to start. So if you're starting a home remodeling business, for instance, go on Facebook and put up a Facebook page and try to start gaining new business. And maybe 6 months into it, you've had several jobs under your belt. Now you've got some revenue, and then you would invest in the website. On the flip side, if you spend too much money trying to do advertisements and you don't have a good website to send them to, all that money is wasted. They get to a website that you've tried to pull together yourself. It doesn't look professional. And now that marketing you've done, the dollars you've spent, they're going to get to your website and then they're not going to hire you anyway. So it's kind of like, well, what do I do first? If you're trying to do something free, starting a LinkedIn, getting a really good profile up on LinkedIn. If you're trying to look for professional services, doing something on Facebook, a Facebook page, those are all free. And you can start your following, and you can start putting up beautiful pictures from examples of your work. I do these really great remodels, and then you can start getting testimonials and start a following and get some really good traction that way. It's not going to take you all the way you want to go as far as growing, but it gets you started. And so a lot of clients that are just starting out, they don't have a budget. They really need to spend their money on equipment or in other, in other avenues. I would say go do some social media campaigns and get yourself on Google My Business. That is the first place you should go, especially if you're a geographically limited business. For instance, if somebody's a landscaper, Google really rewards you. If somebody's searching in your 30-mile radius, they're going to put you above someone who's 100 miles away. So that's like a free, I'm not saying get the website through the Google My Business, because that's not really a thing, but get your Google profile. And that comes up next to the maps. My SEO specialist can put that up for $100, optimize it, get you rolling so that you're showing up when people are searching. Now it has a place for you to link to a website. You can link to your LinkedIn, you can link to your Facebook page until you get the revenue you need to hire a professional and get a really good looking website. What I tell people, you're better off not having a website than having a really poor one. So if you can do other things in the meantime, don't waste your time or your money trying to throw together one cheaply. Get a professional and get it done, because that is the number one and only place where you have total control over your marketing. You can do the Facebook, you can do the LinkedIn, you can do the Twitter or the Instagram, but those could go away tomorrow. Those are limiting to what you can put up there. A website you have total control over. It is the place where everybody lands before they pick up the phone or send you an email. And you really want it to be done professionally and be a really good representation of who you are long-term. So
that's great advice. Looks like we've got one more question. It looks like more of a technical one, and then maybe we can switch to your activity. The technical one was, can you have more than one landing page for the same website?
So landing pages are where you can send someone through marketing. So for instance, maybe you send out an e-newsletter. You have constant contact and you have 500 emails, and you send out an email and you can bring them back from, you can have a link there that brings them back to a landing page. And that landing page doesn't have to be your home page. That landing page can be set up just for that campaign. a very specific special that's only good for a month. And I like to think of your website as a house with many doors. And you're going to find this when you start doing some SEO, that you break your business up into services or specials, and you optimize your page. So if you're a lawyer and you specialize in family law, divorce specifically, but you also do real estate transactions, you wouldn't put all those services on one page. You would separate them and optimize each of those pages. And Google looks at them as both being doors to your website. So Google's not always sending people to your homepage. They would be sending them if someone was searching for a family lawyer for mediation in the Hartford area, and you happen to have a business in the Hartford area and you've optimized your website, they're going to send them to that page. So that's what a landing page is. But sometimes you do like Facebook campaigns, or maybe you do some kind of other campaigns, and you want to see that people go to a specialized page through through your email or through the campaign. You can set up individual pages for landing pages, and they're just secondary pages on your website, and there can be more than one. There can be many of them, and they don't necessarily have to be in your menus. Like if you have like 12 pages in your menus, you could have like hidden pages where people come into your website through different doors, and it's all about marketing. So once you have your website set up, you start talking about how you want to market your business, and everybody markets their business differently based on who they're trying to attract. You talk to your marketing specialist and you set up ways to get them to your website that are going to get them to take the actions you want them to take. And eventually, as far as Provost Home Design, set up that free home design consultation. Like that's what they really wanted them to do in the end. So let's get them to the point that they will do that. So hopefully that answered your question.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. Do you want to, we're just going up on 12 o'clock in a while here. Do you want to go through your activity?
Do a fun little exercise?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I specialize in is accessible websites. Google loves accessible websites, but more than that, 25% of the population will have a disability at one point in their life. And these are potential customers and clients for you. And if your website is accessible, they'll be able to go to your website and they'll be able to use their assistive technology, and they'll be able to navigate around your website and experience it the same way that you or I would do it without the help of assistive technology. So that's one thing I've been trained to do. And to give you a little example of what it is like to be someone who is blind or visually challenged is the alternative text on an image, right? So the blind community would really like you to take some time and put together some really good alternative text for images so that they can experience that image with as much fun as you and I would have seeing that image. Like you're looking here at my dog, Sky, and you're really feeling what a really cool experience that was to bring the dog for a walk. She looks like a really fun dog, right? She's super sweet. And you can see that, but if somebody is looking at this image, or they can't see this image, they've read the text next to it, questions, discussions, Robin, right? The screen reader's reading all of that, but what is the screen reader telling them about that image so that they can visualize it in their mind, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our viewers on this presentation day to close their eyes, and I'm going to read them in alternative text. And I want you to bring up that image in your mind the same way that someone would if they were blind. So you're listening to my voice, but I would be a screen reader, and I'm going to read you that alternative text. When I'm done reading it, I'm going to bring up the page, and you can see the image, and you can really understand what it's like. So it's a fun little exercise in understanding why going the extra step, making your website accessible helps so many people experience online resources like websites. Okay, so close your eyes and I'll read you this alt text and bring it up in your mind's eye. Teenage boy with red curly hair, slightly sunburnt face, wearing a blue and purple check, button-up dress shirt, laughing with his mouth wide open. His head is leaning back, showing a full set of teeth. His nose is scrunched and his eyes are shut. Okay, visualize that. Now I'm going to have you open your eyes. This is the alt text that Google reads, and this is the image. And hopefully you came up with something similar, but it doesn't really matter. If you came up with something similar in your mind, it's that you got to experience it. And that's what the blind community would like when you're describing your images on your websites, so that they can have just as much fun as you do when you're looking at that image. That's a picture of my son, Dan. And this was a senior photo. We were playing around, we were on vacation in Maine, and we were playing around taking pictures. Obviously, this wasn't the one that he chose, but is by far my favorite. My little redhead who gets sunburnt too easily on the beach. So thank you so much for having me, Stephen. This was a lot of fun, and I hope everyone got some really good takeaway information. Feel free to reach out to me. I really appreciated doing this.
Yeah, if you can, yeah, your contact info there is great. Yeah, this has been fantastic. Speaking of that last exercise, we just had a question about how do you make an image have alternative text? Can you answer that one?
Yeah, so most CMSs, they have, when you add an image, usually, and I would explain it inside of my instructions, usually when you're adding the image, they have a spot where you plug it in. It's not something that you can see when you're actually looking at a website, but if you were to look at the source code, it's in the source code next to the image, and Google can find it, and assistive technology finds it. And when it gets there, it reads it to the personology. So you could, depending on what platform that your website is in, you could Google it, or you could ask your web designer. But usually the hooks are in there so that you can easily access the things needed for making a website accessible.
Fantastic. Well, this has been great. Robin, thank you so much for all of these insights. Everyone, I want to thank you all for joining and for your great questions. This is a fantastic conversation. Hopefully everybody learned something valuable today for their own business website. You've got Robin's contact info here. If you want to reach out to her to learn more or to explore what her business can do for you. And if you're interested in learning more about SCORE, you can go to score.org. If you'd like a business mentor, our mentoring services are free. Click on Find a Mentor, fill out a brief form, tell us what help you need, be as specific as you can, and you'll get matched up with a mentor. And that person will be off and running to help you with any help you need in your business. I've been a mentor there for a few years now. I generally help people in the finance space, but also just general business planning. And it's a wonderful experience working with business owners. So thanks again, everybody, for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.